Hello and welcome. Today we're going to take a calm look at a really core concept in web technology. It kind of explains how websites went from being this tangle of messy code to the clean, organized systems we use every day. And it all comes down to understanding something called JSP processing.
You ever wonder how a website can greet you by name? Or how your shopping cart just magically remembers what you've added, even when you click on a dozen other pages? Well, it's not magic. It's something we call dynamic web content. And to really get how it works, we first need to take a little trip back in time to see how things used to be done. So, in the beginning, developers faced a really big problem. You see, a web page has two totally different parts that have to work together. You've got the design, the layout, the text, the images, and then you have the data, the stuff that changes, like your username or the current time. Getting those two to play nice was tricky. Back then, these two worlds were just all mushed together in a really chaotic way. Using things like Java servlets, which are basically programs running on a web server, meant developers had to write all the visual HTML code right inside their complex Java code. I mean, imagine a chef trying to write the recipe into the cake batter while they're mixing it. It was just a mess, all tangled up, and super hard to manage. And this created a huge bottleneck. Think about it. The graphic designers, the people who are experts at making things look good, couldn't even change a color without going to a programmer. And the programmers, who are supposed to be focused on logic, were stuck messing around with endless lines of HTML. Trying to update a website was slow, frustrating, and things broke all the time. But then a much smarter idea came along. It completely flipped the old way on its head. This quote right here explains the shift perfectly. What if, instead of putting the design inside the code, you put little bits of code inside the design? And that was the revolutionary idea behind Java Server Pages, or JSP.
Now, what's really important to get here is that JSP isn't some brand new language you have to learn from scratch. Nope, it's a technology that lets you start with a normal HTML file, something a web designer can build easily, and then you just sprinkle in these special little tags right where you need the dynamic information to go. It was just a really smart, elegant solution to that old, messy problem.
And here it is. This is the aha moment. This simple line shows you everything. Most of it is just plain, boring HTML. But that little part in the middle, between the special tags, that's a tiny piece of Java. It just tells the server, hey, right here, at this exact spot, please insert the current date and time. See how clean that is? It's super intuitive, and it keeps the design stuff neatly separated from the logic stuff.
Okay, so you might be wondering, how does the web server actually understand this mix of HTML and Java and turn it into a web page? Well, it uses a surprisingly efficient two-step process.
And these are the two phases we need to know, the translation phase and the request processing phase. The first one is basically a one-time setup job, and the second one happens every single time a user visits the page.
This diagram really lays it all out for us. The very first time someone asks for a JSP page, the server does something special. It takes that JSP file and translates it into a proper Java servlet. Remember those messy things from before? But then it compiles it into a super fast, optimized file. That whole process is the translation phase, and it only happens once. From then on, every future request for that page gets to skip all those steps and just run the fast, pre-compiled code directly.
So the key takeaway here is how you get this amazing combination of ease and efficiency. The heavy lifting, the translation, only happens once, either the very first time or when you change the code. Every single visit after that is lightning fast because it's just running an already compiled program. It really is the best of both worlds, simple to write and super high performance to run.
Now, this powerful idea of separating what a page looks like from how it actually works, it's not just some random trick for JSP. It's actually a cornerstone of modern software development, and it's so important that it's been formalized into a really famous design pattern.
It's called Model View Controller, or MVC for short. The best way to think about it is as a blueprint for organizing a project. Instead of having one giant messy code file that does everything, MVC gives you a clean way to divide the work into 3 distinct specialized jobs. This makes everything so much easier to build, to fix, and to update later on.
First up, you have the model. The model is basically the brains of the whole operation. It manages all the important data and the business rules. It doesn't know or care one bit about how the data is going to be displayed. Its only job is to manage the information itself and make sure it's correct.
Next, there's the view. And this is pretty simple. It's what the user actually sees. It's the user interface. Our JSP page is a perfect example of a view. Its only job is to take the data it's given and make it look pretty. It's like the graphic designer of the team.
And finally, you have the controller. The controller is the project manager that ties everything together. When a request comes in from a user, the controller is the one that receives it. It then tells the model what data to get, and then it picks the right view to display that data. It's the central coordinator for the whole team.
And this diagram shows exactly how they all work together. A user clicks a link, and that request hits the controller. The controller then turns to the model and says, "Hey, I need the product info." The model grabs the data. Then, the controller hands that data over to the view, our JSP file, which then creates the final HTML page that gets sent back to the user's browser. See? Each part has its own very clear job.
So why do we even bother with all this? Why separate everything? Well, because this idea, this separation of concerns, is pretty much the secret to building good software. It's what makes applications flexible and easy to maintain over time, instead of becoming brittle and breaking the moment you try to change something.
Just think about it for a second. With this setup, you could give your entire website a complete visual makeover. New colors, new fonts, new layouts, by only editing the view files, the JSPs. And you could do all of that without ever having to touch or even look at the core business logic in the model. It's a total game changer for how teams work.
And really, that's the big, peaceful takeaway here. This whole journey from tangled-up code to this clean, organized system teaches us something fundamental about good design. This idea of separating responsibilities, separating what something looks like from how it works, is a powerful lesson that goes way beyond just programming. It helps us create things that are not only effective, but are truly built to last.